Hey everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a really big topic. One that has shaped empires, sparked revolutions, and continues to influence billions of lives every single day. We're talking about the intricate, sometimes messy, and always fascinating relationship between faith and the state. How does the government you live under shape what you believe, how you worship, and even who you are? Let's get into it. From the dawn of civilization, rulers and religion have been deeply intertwined. Think about ancient Egypt. The pharaoh wasn't just a king. He was considered a living god, a divine intermediary between the heavens and the earth. The entire state apparatus, from the laws to the construction of the pyramids, was built on this religious foundation. This wasn't just about power, it was about cosmic order. The state and the temple were essentially one and the same, working together to maintain what they called Mahat, or harmony and balance in the universe. If you were a citizen back then, your political loyalty and your religious devotion were inseparable. Now, let's jump forward to the Roman Empire. Initially, Rome was pretty tolerant of the various religions within its vast territories. As long as you paid your taxes and acknowledged the divine status of the emperor, you could generally worship your own gods. But this created a major clash with early Christians, whose monotheistic faith made it impossible for them to worship the emperor as a god. This refusal was seen not just as a religious disagreement, but as an act of political defiance, of treason. And this led to periods of intense persecution. The state demanded a form of religious conformity as a test of loyalty. Everything changed, however, with Emperor Constantine in the 4th century. After his conversion, Christianity went from a persecuted minority faith to the favored religion of the most powerful empire in the world. Suddenly, the state wasn't just tolerating Christianity, it was actively promoting it. Constantine convened the Council of Nicaea to standardize Christian doctrine. Why? Because a unified church meant a more unified Stavile empire. The state was now actively shaping the theology of the faith, deciding what was orthodox and what was heresy. This set a precedent for centuries to come in Europe, where kings and popes would vie for ultimate authority, a dynamic that defined the entire medieval period. This fusion of church and state, known as Christendom, reached its zenith in the Middle Ages. The Catholic Church was a massive political and economic power. It crowned kings, owned vast lands, and could command armies through crusades. Your life, from birth to death, was governed by church law. But this system eventually faced a massive challenge: the Protestant Reformation. When Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to that church door in 1517, he wasn't just starting a theological debate. He was lighting a political fire. Princes and rulers across Europe saw an opportunity. By breaking with the Pope in Rome, they could seize church lands, stop sending money to the Vatican, and consolidate their own power. The new motto became Quies regio eius religio, which means whose realm, his religion. If your king was Catholic, you were Catholic. If he became a Lutheran, so did you. Your personal faith was now directly tied to the political and religious affiliation of your ruler. This led to over a century of devastating religious wars that tore Europe apart. The sheer brutality of these wars eventually led to a radical new idea, one that many of us take for granted today: the separation of church and state. Thinkers of the Enlightenment, like John Locke, argued that faith was a matter of individual conscience, not government decree. They proposed that for a society to be peaceful and prosperous, the state should be neutral in matters of religion. This idea was revolutionary, and nowhere was it more clearly implemented than in the founding of the United States. The First Amendment to the Constitution is very clear: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. This created a unique marketplace of ideas. Without a state-sponsored church, different denominations had to compete for followers. This led to a vibrant, diverse, and dynamic religious landscape that is still a hallmark of America today. The state wasn't promoting one faith. It was creating a framework where many faiths could flourish. But this separation isn't always so clear-cut, even in secular countries. Think about state holidays like Christmas, or debates over faith-based schools receiving public funds. Or consider countries like England, which still has an official state church, the Church of England, with the monarch as its supreme governor. It's a largely ceremonial role today, but it shows how these historical ties linger. Now, let's look at the other extreme. States that are officially atheistic. The Soviet Union is a prime example. Under communism, religion was branded as the opiate of the masses, a tool used by the ruling classes to control the proletariat. The state actively sought to eradicate religious belief. They closed churches, mosques, and synagogues, and promoted a scientific, atheistic worldview through education and propaganda. But did it work? Not entirely. Faith went underground. People worshipped in secret, risking their freedom and their lives. The moment the Soviet Union collapsed, religion came roaring back, demonstrating that you can't simply legislate belief out of existence. A similar story played out in China, where the state continues to exercise tight control over religious groups, approving official versions of faiths while suppressing those it deems a threat to its authority. So what does this all mean for us today? We live in a globalized world where these different models are constantly interacting and sometimes clashing. In some parts of the world, your national identity is inseparable from your religious identity. In others, faith is seen as a purely private matter, and in still others, the state is actively hostile to it. The line between the throne and the altar has been drawn and redrawn throughout history.